Helen, Johnny, welcome to Albania. I'm really excited for tomorrow's show, but I have a few important questions for you first. Now, first of all, just for everybody listening, can we have a quick overview of what's going to happen, but also what is the aim, what's the purpose of World Questions?
The structure of World Questions is pretty simple. A panel of 4 politicians and commentators who take questions from the audience. The audience is invited from the whole country, and we have an open system where people can simply apply for tickets for weeks beforehand. They come about an hour or an hour and a half before the show. They write down their questions. We sort through the questions, select 6, 7 questions, and then we put those questions to the panel. And then as much as possible, we ask the audience what they think of the answers that they receive. So we like to think it's a very democratic show. We get very good representation from political parties. We get senior political figures, senior analysts and commentators. And the aim is really a belief that debate, and open debate in particular, helps people both understand the challenges that politicians face. It helps politicians understand what the people are thinking, and that by coming together you can get your way towards solutions. I'm not saying that we solve the problems of the world with the programme, but it is part of the democratic process, both within countries and all around the world.
Now, you said, the panel are asked questions and then the audience has a chance to respond. You have been all over the world with this show. I can imagine there have been quite a few hairy moments during the debate. Do things get a bit feisty sometimes?
Yeah, they do. I mean, and you want activity, and we expect that in Albania. I mean, I know that there's a lot of passion here in politics and in life generally. What we want is light and heat. You want energy, you want passion. This is about the most important topics in people's lives. They will be active and they will be verbal about it. At the same time, it's a debate. It has to be civilised. It can't be a shouting match. Now, sometimes it can get a bit shouty, and you get a real exposure to the different cultures around the world. Sometimes the audience is very, very quiet, very, very respectful. Other countries, it's much more active. Nearly everywhere, people are very pleased to see us. It's not our job to go around teaching people about democracy. That's not what we do. But what we do is give people a chance to hold a debate that perhaps traditionally they don't have in their own countries, and do it under, as I say, a sort of vigorous but civilised manner.
This is very important. I don't think there are many opportunities for Albanian people to engage directly in a format like this. So I'm interested to see which category Albania will fall into, whether there'll be the feisty audience or the quiet and respectful one. Now, one question I often get asked is, what were my preconceptions about Albania before I came here? I am sure you had some idea of what it might be like. And I'm curious what those were when Albania, Tirana came up as the location for this episode, and how, and if and how this has changed throughout the planning process over the last few months until when you arrived, and now looking forward to the show.
Helen?
Yes, I think not much was known about Albania. I certainly didn't know that much. You know, the former socialist, communist state, not visited by that many people yet. Somewhat of a bit of a reputation around criminality. I mean, I have to admit, that was one of the things that you hear on the international kind of press. And so I didn't know much about it. I knew tourists were starting to come here. I knew you had beautiful beaches, wonderful mountains. I had a family member who'd been and travelled across Albania, and he came back with telling us great adventures and telling us he'd met lots of Australians and international travellers here. So I knew it was a country sort of in transition. Having done the research, I found out how interesting your politics is, how polarised it is, how problematic it is at times. And I think from being here, we have only been here for a short time, so we haven't seen a great deal. We've seen the capital, which is stunning, and we've seen some of the coast. But I think I've been really touched by how kind people have been. Do you want to tell the story about your leg?
Oh, we can tell the story about it.
You can't say no now.
Say no. I mean, look, I would echo what Helen says. I mean, I've been nearly everywhere in the Western Balkans apart from Albania when I was Europe correspondent. And it's fascinating coming here and seeing the similarities, but also the differences, and obviously the impact of that extraordinary period where this was a pretty much a closed country. When it comes to the leg, I tripped and fell in Durres, and there was blood going down my leg. It was nothing too serious, but everywhere we went, people were stopping me in the street saying, do you want a tissue? Do you want some help? One man gave me his rakia to clean the leg with.
Kill anything, any germ.
But genuinely, that kindness, that goes above and beyond the wealth of a country, the productivity, the education levels. That is the heart of a country, and it is the thing which you always take home. You don't take home the fact that you tripped and fell. You take home the fact that everyone wanted to help you, and that is what I will always think about Albania.
It's nice to hear. I'm used to it, and coming from the UK where things are very different, it was something that really struck me as well. Now let's get to the nitty-gritty. We have Luzlin Basha on the panel. There has been a bit of back and forth on some social media posts about why he's there and why he should be there. What was your criteria for choosing the panel, and what was behind the decision to include Basha and perhaps not another member of one of the factions of the Democratic Party?
I mean, you're always going to have a representative of the government, which we have, and you want to have a representative of the opposition as well. Obviously, the opposition has been in flux, to say the least. There's been a lot of challenges and in court and out of court. Luzlin Basha, for us, is a senior national and international figure, obviously a former mayor as well of Tirana. He has excellent English, and I'm sure will represent the opposition broadly to the government, as well as representing his own part of the opposition. But for us, it was a very difficult decision to make. And in some senses, we were never going to get this right. I understand the criticism, I understand the concern, but in the end, you have to make a decision. And because of his seniority, because he has represented the country, because he sits in the opposition, we felt that he was the man to do the job. And I understand people will disagree. This is broadcasting, not particle physics. This is an art, not a science. So I understand the disagreements, but this was a decision that we thought long and hard about, and in the end, we're very happy to have him on the panel.
Was there any discussion, did you have any contact with the people from Salih Berisha's faction, from other factions of the opposition? Have there been any discussions between them?
Yes, they have. So we've been in touch with Salih Berisha's team, and we've made clear that why we made the decision, because he is under house arrest, so he's unable to join us. He was under house arrest when we started researching the programme a few months ago. He still is. So he's unable to come, but his members and his supporters were very open. We've sent them all the links. They can come along to the programme, participate in the programme, be in the audience. So we have not excluded them at all. They're very welcome to come, and I hope they do.
And building on from this, any concerns from people about bias, whether you're favouring one side or the other, who's allowed to attend, what questions will be asked, will you be too soft on people? Can we just nip all of these conspiracies in the bud? How can you ensure a fair hearing to the audience and the people of Albania?
Look, we bring the values of the BBC to this. And yes, the corporation, the BBC, has its critics, both in Britain and around the world. But our values are very clear about giving people a fair shout, about balance, about impartiality. And so all those values that we have held now for, more than 75 years, come onto this programme. And every decision we make about questions, about answers, about the panel, about the audience, is informed by those values. We take this immensely seriously, and we take the concerns of Albanians seriously, and also the concerns and the hopes for our wider global audience very seriously as well.
I want to address another issue with you, the migrant crisis of 2022, which is where Albania made headlines around the world for lots of wrong reasons. The BBC in Albania has been criticised for its stances on that, which some people thought was unfair. And I guess I want to know, do you think this show and your presence here can have a part in helping rebuild some of that trust that may have been lost during that time?
I'm unhappy if trust is ever lost. It's the most important thing for us that our audiences trust us, both in Britain and around the world. It's critically important. I hope that by holding an open debate, under the kind of conditions which we've discussed already, that people understand the kind of values that inform the BBC. I don't know the specific details of the criticism that there was of the BBC here. I've been in the BBC, more than 25 years, and I've heard an awful lot of criticism over the years. Most of it, or a lot of it, comes from a misconception about how we do our job and why we do our job. But I understand as well, especially in a very polarised world, that the people who bring the stories to you quite often get criticised, and that is the BBC, and we're big enough to do it. But do I hope that people see this programme, or listen to this programme rather, and understand why we do what we do? Of course I do. I certainly do.
I'd also like to say, I think migration will come up as an issue. We don't know what the questions are in advance. The audience are self-selecting. We advertise on social media, so anyone is able to come along. And I have a feeling that migration and the falling population will be one of the questions that may be asked by the audience. And so I think our programme might be a really good platform for people to discuss why the migration crisis is happening and how it might be improved, how people will manage to stay and have good opportunities here. So I hope in some way the BBC will explore those issues.
Because how many people listen to this show worldwide?
Well, BBC World Service English has 90 million weekly listeners. This is a very popular show on the network. We know because it also gets a large number of downloads from BBC Sounds, the app. So this is a very high-profile show. It's an expensive show for the BBC to do, and there is a small part of it which is about saying, yes, this is the BBC. This is what we stand for.
So, 90 million potential listeners, this is a huge opportunity potentially for Albanians themselves to create a narrative around what happened and what's happening with migration as well. And this kind of follows into my next question. Albania's reputation internationally is a little confused. On the one hand, as we've mentioned, we can talk about tourism, the Maldives of Europe, friendly people, beautiful countryside, everyone come to Albania, it's amazing. But then on the other hand, we have Albanian crime, Albanian migration, asylum seekers, etc. Do you think a show like this can contribute to Albania's reputation in a positive way, in a negative way?
I wonder. To be entirely honest with you, I wonder whether people listen to a show like this and come away thinking better of Albania. I hope they do, because, again, I go back to what I said right at the beginning, which is open, free, democratic debate, I hope, is something that people respect. And to see politicians and people come together and have that debate and intelligently discuss the issues, the hugely important issues for Albania, I would think, if you're listening, you're going to think better of Albania at the end of that than you would at the beginning. But, it's not the BBC's job to come here and make Albania seem better. The country has so much going for it. Most of all, its people, obviously. And I think it's up to Albania and the Albanians to do that rather than the BBC.
But you can maybe facilitate it slightly through...
Well, I hope that, I agree with Johnny, we're not here as a sort of PR stunt, but I hope people understand the country a bit better. In terms of the programme and where we go, where we've been to Mongolia, this year we've been to America, we've been to the Philippines, we've been to Poland. It's like a sort of snapshot of what's happening in that country at that time. So people around the world who don't know what's going on in Albania, hopefully listening to this programme, will get a clearer insight into the kind of political debate that's going on and what people's concerns are and what that country is about.
Yes. I hope so. Now, last but not least, the show, how can people take part? Why should they take part? Let's give people a call to action to get them to come and see what this is about.
Well, you can still register for the programme. If you go to BBC World Questions, you'll see on our website there is a link to registration. We have a few seats left, so we're nearly full, but there are a few seats left. Come along, register, you must register, bring some photo ID and come along and be part of the programme, have your say, as we say, in a debate that will be heard around the world. And we would urge people to come and have their say.
Johnny, anything to add?
Just say this, every country has challenges and opportunities. It really does. Albania has has some big challenges, but equally it obviously has great opportunities. You know, its position and its people. These are great strengths. And I think when you let the rest of the world know about the challenges and opportunities of a country and you get them to understand it, inevitably that puts that country, Albania, the Philippines, Mongolia, into the community of nations. And it just sweeps away clumsy stereotypes. And that, for me, is so important. Life is not black and white. Life is not criminal, not criminal. It's not like that. And that's our job. It's to show up shades of grey and explore those.
Thank you very much, and good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.